Good morning, it's Bruce Ferris here with Windermere Real Estate in Seattle. It's 17th of April, it's Friday. Let's go ahead and take a look at some numbers and talk about some mortgage situations. But before we do, let's be reminded it is spring. And here are some killdeer eggs out in the front yard of our property here on Maury Island, which is attached to Vashon Island in the Sound. Local news, Boeing to resume commercial plane production in Puget Sound. That's going to have some import here. Stocks, we're watching this most of the time. Normally we wouldn't have cared, but now we're watching stocks. Pretty bumpy ride this week. Today took off quite a bit, and then there was a lot of sell-off at that point, but we're still at least plus at 1.57. Interest rates at 3.38 as of yesterday afternoon. 3.25 was the low in the last few weeks, and high was at 4.15. Let's jump over to here to some numbers. Before we go any further into my numbers, I want to talk about a conversation I had with Mike Peacore with Blue Square Mortgage. He's a broker, very, very sharp guy, and always appreciate his input. I'm going to give you sort of some cliff notes here. I'm going to read right from my abbreviated notes. I was asking about what's going to be taking place with underwriting in terms of loans. The question always is, once we get into transaction with a buyer or a seller, are we going to find a situation as we get closer to closing that the lender for the purchaser is going to start asking for further documentation of particular items once it gets into the hands of the final underwriters? So that was my question to Michael, and here's the response he gave me. Underwriting requirements have tightened up quite a bit. Credit scores are going up. FHA is still available in lower credit scores. Was as low as 580, but they're probably going up or have gone up, maybe up to 620 FICO score. Conventional, on the other hand, overlays are coming fast. Lenders take FNMA requirements. They decide to increase on top of them some stringency so that their loan fallout is lower than the national average. So I asked, what is an overlay? And basically, overlay means that the lender is deciding that they want even a higher level of stringency from that buyer. And that's typically going to take place not at the beginning, not at the point when they're pre-approved. That's going to take place when it gets into the final underwriter's hands. And in the past, there have been times where people are very upset that as we get closer to closing, all of a sudden the lenders start requiring new documentation that wasn't asked for originally, putting the buyers into a frightened or I'll just use the word frightened situation. They're nervous and they're scared that they can't provide the information the lender wants. And of course, the seller is going to be a bit freaked out as well, to use my old terms, because they're not sure the deal is going to be able to close if the buyer can't produce what the lender is asking for. So that's my jump in there. Now, they'll go ahead and buy 80% loan-to-value loans with credit scores of 620 or higher. These are the investors at 20% or more down. But lenders are increasing those, and they want to see a 580 credit score and 30% equity. They don't want to do anything above an 80% loan to value. So most jumbos are gone at this point. The reason is the banks can't find investors to buy them. One of the companies that Mike works with, New Residential, he basically said, who are these guys? Well, they're an investment trust. They buy mortgages and pack them up for corporate investments. And for the longest time, they were doing loans for banks, and then they would turn around and sell them to investment companies. But now the investment companies are producing them themselves. They're bypassing the banks. They advertise on platforms. They search for wholesale lending companies. And lenders are hypersensitive at this point to providing loans in an investment market not certain of outcome. They'll do it, but it's got to be cream of the crop. So for Fannie Mae and FreddieMac, government loans up to $750,000 still can be done at 5% to 10% down with some higher credit scores required. But other loans may be having stiffer guidelines and heavier overlays. If they deem more risky, they may add a higher fee, an eighth of a point or a 0.025 to origination, because they consider them more risky if they have a better price and better opportunities to sell it. Whew. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and jump into the numbers very quickly. Newly actives, pending inspections, pending, let's see if I can get that out of there, just regular pendings, transactions, and 6-day off markets. Remember, we're always tracking the 6-day off market relationship to newly active. That tells us what the speed of the market is at any given point. These bright pinks, I guess I'll call them, that means we've got the highest numbers since that moment of shelter in place, which is back here on the 26th. Yellow means highest number for the year. So frankly, we had a one-day highest number at 33 new listings per day. We were at 31 as of yesterday. So we see this typical ebb and flow taking place, but you can see how those numbers really came out of the gates right about here, back down a little bit, and then came back up again. We'll see what they are tomorrow as well. 7-day and total newly actives, those are the highest numbers since shelter in place. And as a matter of fact, this 526, that also would be yellow as well. That is the highest number of total listings available at since the beginning of the year. Pending inspections, those properties that go into transaction but still have a contingency, 43, 7-day, that's the highest number of 7-day pending inspections we've had since post-COVID. We'll call it post-shelter in place, PSIP. Total pendings, the pending pool, we'll call it. Well, 8 is the highest number that went into that stage in a 1-day process. However, unusual, this 403 and 399, there we go, 399, that's the lowest number since post-shelter in place. So that's the lowest volume of pooled pendings at this point. Not super important, but I like to take a look at that. Now, 6 days off market, same kind of phenomenon taking place here. We had the highest number of 1-day, 6-day off markets since post-shelter in place, and that was 9 per day a couple days ago. And that led to a looking back 7-day, that gave us the highest number of 7-day time period of properties going off market in 6 days or less. However, the actual pool of 6-day off markets is at its lowest point. Now, this isn't super important. These numbers right here in relation to those numbers, that's what's important. The 9 to 17, the 9 to 11, and that's what gave us the different averages that we had there. So with that, let's get over to totals of weekly pending and pending inspections at 100, and then finally our ratios. Pending and pending inspections in relationship to new actives on a weekly basis, they're now, you can see they're coming down here, a little bit dropping down. Pending and pending inspections in relationship to actives on the total pool, just under 90. 6 days off market in relationship to pending and pending inspections. So how many of these two sets are doing this 6-day off market within a week's time? And currently we're just under 50%. And that's a high for post-COVID right there. Certainly not a high for the year. I think high of the year was 71%. And that was the surge that took place right at the moment of shelter in place, when people were simply scrambling to get into transaction and get things done. 6-day off market in relationship to new actives coming on a weekly basis. Here's our numbers here, 66% at that surge once again. Let's go back in time. Here's what it was looking like before, though. There's a fairly balanced environment moving up and down. Let's just put that as a 40 on an average at that point. There were some higher numbers there, but still not too greatly high. And look where we are. We're at 45%. Excuse me. We are at 30%. I'm thinking of this number here. We're at 30% versus the 40 to 45% that we were back here. Still seller friendly. Seller, what's the word? Seller slanted is a better phrase. Market in terms of leverage and advantage. 29%, just below 30%. Obviously, here was our low post-COVID, but that wasn't low enough to really be of any import. Northwest Multiple Listing Market Watch. They do a similar thing that we do, but a little bit broader and a little bit less stringent. Their numbers showing the newly actives and the newly pendings in last week. They just surged from 90. You can see these numbers here, 80s. Here's 60 at the low from post-COVID. This starts pushing upwards, and then bing, 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 10 at a time, right? Let's see. Took a while to get between 60 to 80. There was a little jump there, but then we're having this jump up here, and as a result, that brings our new pending to new active relationship to 96%, 105. So we've crested the 100 mark here. Those are the highest numbers since post-shelter in place, and that is it. We will leave you with this darling picture of the eggs, and we'll talk to you soon, and hope that was of help. Take good care. Bye-bye.